It was late in the evening when everything finally stopped being just a suspicion and turned into something real. I was sitting in my truck across the street from a small, worn-out house on the edge of town, the kind of place you'd drive past 100 times without ever noticing. A single porch light flickered weakly above the door, casting long shadows across the yard. No cars in the driveway except one, Laura's pickup. I kept staring at it like my brain refused to process what my eyes were clearly seeing. I even checked the license plate twice, like maybe somehow it wasn't hers, like maybe I was losing it, but no. Same dent on the rear bumper, same faded sticker on the back window. She refused to take off. It was her truck, and it was parked outside a house I had never seen before. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel, slow at first, then harder until my knuckles started turning pale. I told myself there had to be an explanation. There always is, right? Maybe she stopped to help someone. Maybe she knew the owner. Maybe. Yeah, maybe I was an idiot. Because deep down, this wasn't coming out of nowhere. This was weeks, months of things I had pushed aside, stacked up quietly in the back of my mind, all coming back at once. The late nights, the extra shifts, the way she started keeping her phone face down, the way she'd step out of the room to answer calls, the way conversations between us got shorter, colder, like we were just two people sharing space instead of a life. And now this. I exhaled slowly and reached for my phone. For a second, I just stared at her name on the screen. Laura Redart. That little heart suddenly felt like a joke. Still, I pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then she picked up. "Hey babe," she said, her voice light, too light. There was a smile in it, I could hear it. "I'm still out shopping, I'll probably be a bit late." "Shopping?" I turned my head slightly and looked right at her truck sitting across the street. The silence on my end stretched for just a second too long. "Hello," she added quickly. "You there?" "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Yeah, I'm here." I leaned back in my seat, forcing myself to sound normal. Casual, like I wasn't sitting 20 yards away from where she actually was. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, of course," she replied immediately. "Too fast, just running around. You know how it is. Lines are crazy tonight. Lines." There was no noise behind her, no chatter, no carts, no background music, just silence. And her breathing. I didn't call her out, not yet. "Yeah," I said quietly, "I get it." Another pause. I could almost feel her waiting for me to say more, like she was measuring every second of silence, trying to figure out if I knew, but I didn't give her anything. "All right," I said finally, "drive safe." "I will," she answered quickly, then softer, almost like she was trying to seal it. "Love you." The words hung there. For a second, I almost laughed. "Yeah," I muttered. "You too." I ended the call before she could say anything else. The moment the screen went dark, the quiet inside the truck felt heavier, like something had shifted permanently. I stared at the house again. Same dim porch light, same stillness. Nothing moved. And then my phone buzzed. I frowned, glancing down. Unknown number. For a moment I thought about ignoring it, but something in my gut twisted sharp and immediate like a warning. I opened the message. "You've got half an hour to leave her house." I read it once, then again and again. My heartbeat slowed instead of speeding up. Not panic, something else, something colder. Someone inside that house knew I was here, which meant one thing. This wasn't random. This wasn't innocent. This was planned. I leaned back slowly, letting my head rest against the seat. My eyes never left the front door. Half an hour. That's what they gave me. Like I was supposed to just leave. Walk away. Pretend I didn't see anything. Pretend my wife wasn't inside that house with someone who clearly knew about me. I let out a quiet breath and locked my phone, slipping it back into my pocket. Then I adjusted in my seat, settling in deeper, more comfortable, like I had all the time in the world. Because I wasn't going anywhere. Not this time. Not anymore. If there was a truth behind that door, I was going to see it. No matter how it ended, I didn't move. Not when 5 minutes passed. Not when 10 did. Not even when a car drove by slowly, its headlights sweeping across my windshield and briefly lighting up the inside of the truck like a spotlight. I just sat there watching that house. At some point, I stopped checking the time altogether. Because the truth was, I wasn't waiting for half an hour to run out. I was waiting for something else. Something that would finally confirm what I'd been trying not to believe for weeks. And once that thought settled in, it opened the floodgates. Everything I had pushed down came rushing back. It started small. That's how it always starts, right? Little things you brush off because you trust the person. Because you don't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband looking for problems where there aren't any. Laura had always been straightforward, simple, honest. That's what I used to tell people anyway. But about 3 months ago, something shifted. At first, it was just her schedule.
schedule. Work's been crazy, she told me one night, dropping her keys on the counter without even looking at me. They're pushing deadlines and I'm stuck picking up the slack. I didn't question it. Why would I? I just nodded, reheated dinner, and sat across from her while she barely touched her food, scrolling through her phone instead. Back then, I told myself she was just stressed. Everyone gets like that sometimes.
But then it became a pattern. Late nights turned into later nights, then into don't wait up, then into entire evenings where I didn't even know where she was until she got home. And when she did get home, she wasn't really there. Physically, yeah, but everything else, gone. She'd walk past me like I was part of the furniture. Short answers, no eye contact, no interest in anything I said. At first I tried to fix it. I asked if everything was okay. I suggested we take a weekend off, maybe get out of town. I even tried cooking her favorite meal one night, something I hadn't done in years. She barely noticed. "Thanks," she said, distracted, already halfway through typing a message to someone else. That was the first time something in my chest tightened, because it wasn't just distance. It felt like replacement. Then came the phone. God, the phone. It used to just sit wherever. On the table, the couch, the kitchen counter. She never cared. Then suddenly it was always in her hand, or in her pocket, or face down. Always face down. I remember one night specifically. We were sitting on the couch, TV on, neither of us really watching. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up fast, too fast, and angled the screen away from me without even thinking about it. That automatic movement, that instinct to hide. I noticed it immediately. "Who's that?" I asked casually. She didn't even look up. Work. Just one word. Flat. I nodded, but I kept watching her. She smiled at whatever she was reading. Not a polite smile, not a casual one. Something softer, warmer. Something I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. That stuck with me. I didn't say anything then either. I just added it to the pile. Then, about a month ago, I found the second phone. It wasn't even hidden that well. She had left her bag on the kitchen chair while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I was just looking for my truck keys, which I thought I'd left near it. That's when I heard the vibration. Not from her usual phone, from inside the bag. I hesitated. I knew I shouldn't look, but something in my gut told me this wasn't nothing. So I reached in and there it was, a phone I had never seen before. No case, no notifications on the screen, just a lock screen with a simple passcode. My hand went cold holding it. I remember just standing there staring at it, trying to come up with a reasonable explanation. Work phone maybe, but why wouldn't she mention it? Why keep it buried at the bottom of her bag? I put it back exactly where I found it before she came out of the shower, and I didn't ask. I wish I had. Maybe it would have ended differently, or maybe I just wasn't ready to hear the truth yet. After that, everything started connecting in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. The trips to her sister. Funny thing about that, her sister mentioned during a call that she hadn't seen Laura in weeks. That was the moment something inside me really shifted. Not cracked, shifted. Like a piece falling into place. I started noticing everything after that. The way she changed outfits more carefully before going out. The way she checked herself in the mirror longer than usual. The way she'd sometimes smile at her phone, then instantly wipe it off when she noticed me looking. And the biggest one, the distance. It wasn't just emotional anymore, it was final. Like she had already left the marriage, like I just hadn't been informed yet. And now here I was, sitting across from a random house. Her truck parked outside. A message in my pocket from some guy telling me to leave. A guy who clearly wasn't worried about me because to him, I probably didn't matter anymore. I exhaled slowly, dragging a hand down my face. The night felt colder now, quieter, heavier. And for the first time since I got there, I stopped hoping I was wrong because everything, every single piece, was pointing to the same conclusion. I just hadn't seen it yet. But I shifted slightly in my seat, eyes locked on the front door, waiting. I don't know exactly how long I sat there before it happened. Time stopped working the way it normally does. Minutes stretched out, heavy and slow, like they didn't want to move forward. Every small sound felt louder. The faint hum of my engine cooling, the distant bark of a dog somewhere down the street, the occasional car passing far off in the distance, but my eyes never left that front door. And then I heard it. Laughter. At first it was faint, barely noticeable, just a muffled sound from inside the house. But then it came again, clearer this time, and I froze because I knew that laugh. I'd heard it 1,000 times before on road trips, during stupid late-night conversations over things that weren't even that funny. It used to be one of my favorite sounds in the world, Laura's laugh. But this one felt wrong. Too light, too easy, too. Like it didn't belong to me anymore. My jaw tightened as I leaned forward slightly, instinctively, like getting closer would somehow change what I was hearing. Then another voice, a man's voice. Low, confident, close to her. Too close. Something inside my chest shifted again, but this time it wasn't confusion. It was clarity. Cold, sharp, undeniable clarity. I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't think about the message anymore. I didn't question whether I should leave. I already knew the answer. The front door opened and everything slowed down. The porch light flickered once as the door creaked outward, casting a stronger glow across the yard. For a split second, I saw only shadows moving inside. Then he stepped out first. Tall, broad shoulders, mid-30s maybe. The kind of guy who carried himself like he owned every space he walked into. No hesitation, no concern, just confidence. And behind him, Laura. She was smiling, actually smiling. Not the forced, tired expression she'd been giving me for weeks. Not the distant, distracted look I had gotten used to. No, this was different. Relaxed, warm, alive. The same look I used to think was mine. And for a second, just 1 second, my brain tried to reject what I was seeing, like it was a glitch, like it wasn't real. But then she laughed again at something he said. And that was it. That was the moment everything locked into place. I opened the truck door and stepped out. The sound must have caught their attention. Both of them turned. Laura's smile disappeared instantly. Not slowly, not confused, just gone, like someone flipped a switch. Her eyes widened, and for a second she just stared at me like she didn't recognize what she was seeing. Then reality hit her. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Her voice wasn't warm anymore. It wasn't even guilty. It was irritated. That part hit harder than anything else. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, a few steps away from the edge of the yard, looking at her. Really looking at her. And for the first time in years, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger. The guy next to her stepped forward slightly, placing himself just a bit in front of her like it was instinct. Protective or territorial. Either way, it told me everything I needed to know. "You lost or something?" he said, his tone calm but edged with something else. "This isn't your place." I let out a quiet breath, slow, measured. Then I looked at him, really looked at him, took in the smirk, the relaxed posture, the way he thought he was in control of the situation. He didn't recognize me. Of course he didn't. To him, I was just some guy, just a problem to handle. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I figured that out." Laura stepped forward slightly now, her expression tightening. "Look, this isn't," she started, but I cut her off. "No," I said calmly. "Don't." She stopped, and for the first time I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not regret, uncertainty, like she wasn't sure how this was going to play out. The guy next to her scoffed lightly. "Man, whatever this is, you should probably leave," he said. "You're not wanted here." That word wanted, something about it clicked wrong in my head. Like everything that had been building all night finally snapped into place. I took a step forward, just one, and his expression shifted slightly. Not fear, but awareness. "Or what?" I asked, still calm, still controlled, but something underneath it had changed. He straightened up a bit, jaw tightening. "Or you're going to have a problem," he said. And there it was, that confidence again, that assumption, that belief that he understood the situation, that he had control over it. He didn't. He had no idea what kind of line he had just crossed. I didn't rush him, didn't yell, didn't make a scene. I just closed the distance fast. One step turned into two, two into three, and before he had time to fully react, everything changed. His confidence didn't disappear all at once. It shattered instantly. 1 second he was standing there talking, the next he was on the ground, confused, disoriented, like his brain hadn't caught up with what just happened. He tried to say something, anything, but it came out wrong, slurred, broken, and just like that, all the threats, all the attitude, all the control he thought he had gone. Laura gasped behind him, not in panic, not in fear, in anger. "You're insane," she snapped, stepping forward. "What is wrong with you?" I didn't even look at her right away. I just stood there, breathing steady, looking down at the guy as he tried to process reality. Then finally, I turned to her, and whatever she expected to see on my face, it wasn't there. No rage, no desperation, no pleading, just nothing. And I think that scared her more than anything else, because in that moment she realized something. something she hadn't expected. She hadn't just crossed the line, she had ended something completely. She stared at me like she was trying to figure out who I was, not recognize me. No, that part was obvious, but understand me. Like the version of me standing in front of her didn't match the one she had already rewritten in her head. "You've lost your mind," Laura said, her voice sharp, cutting through the silence like she was trying to take control of it. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. And that seemed to bother her more than anything else because she kept going. "This is exactly why I didn't tell you anything," she snapped, crossing her arms. "You always overreact, always. You make everything bigger than it needs to be." I almost smiled, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. Even now, even standing there caught in something she couldn't deny. She was still trying to twist it. "Still trying to make it about me. Overreact," I repeated quietly. She nodded immediately like she had been waiting for that. "Yes, this." She gestured vaguely toward the guy on the ground, still trying to sit up, still dazed. "This is insane. You show up out of nowhere. Start acting like you own me or something." "I don't," I cut in. She stopped just for a second. "I don't own you," I said, my voice calm, steady, "and I'm not acting like I do." Her expression tightened. "Then what is this?" she shot back. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you couldn't handle the fact that I moved on." That word again, moved on. Like it was already finished. Like she had already decided the story, and I was just catching up late. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head slightly. "You didn't move on," I said. "You just didn't tell me you already left." That landed. I saw it. Just a flicker, but it was there. And for a split second, she didn't have a response. But it didn't last. It never does. "Maybe I tried to tell you," she said, her tone shifting, less sharp, more defensive now. "Maybe you just didn't listen. Did you ever think about that?" I held her gaze, didn't blink, didn't look away. "No," I said simply. That caught her off guard because she expected an argument, a back and forth, something she could work with. But I wasn't giving her that. "You never tried," I continued. "You just started disappearing piece by piece." Her jaw tightened. "That's not fair," she said quickly. "It's not supposed to be fair," I replied. "None of this is." Behind her, the guy finally managed to sit up fully, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, still trying to understand what just happened. He looked at me again, this time differently, less confident, more careful. But I barely noticed him anymore because this wasn't about him. Not really. It never was. This was about her. Laura took a step closer, her eyes narrowing. "You know what?" she said. "Fine. You want the truth? I was done." Okay, I've been done for a while. There it was, finally, out loud. Clear, direct, no more hiding. I nodded once, not surprised, not shocked, just confirming what I already knew. "For how long?" I asked. She hesitated, and that hesitation said more than any number she could have given me. But she answered anyway. "Months," she said. "At least months." I let that sit for a second, felt it, processed it, then nodded again. "Yeah," I said quietly. "That makes sense." She frowned slightly like my reaction wasn't what she expected. "You're not even gonna fight for this?" she asked, almost accusing. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since all of this started, I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not pain, something else, something clearer. "No," I said. That hit harder than anything else I could have said. Her expression shifted immediately from defensive to confused. "What do you mean, no?" she asked. "I mean, no," I repeated. "I'm not fighting for something that doesn't exist anymore." Her lips parted slightly like she wanted to argue but didn't have the words ready because she expected resistance. Emotion. Desperation. "Not this. Not calm. You're just going to walk away," she pressed. I tilted my head slightly. "You already did," I said. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Final. After everything. 10 years and this is how you act? That almost got a reaction out of me. Almost. But instead, I just exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I said 10 years. I glanced around briefly. The house, the yard, the situation we were standing in, then back at her. "And this is how it ends." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. No quick response, no defense, just silence. And in that silence, something shifted again. But this time, it wasn't in me. It was in her because she realized something she hadn't expected. This wasn't a fight. There was no argument to win, no way to spin it, no way to fix it. This was over completely. "I'll have my lawyer contact you," I said, calm and direct. "We'll handle everything properly." That snapped her out of it. Her eyes widened slightly. "Lawyer," she repeated. "You're seriously going straight to that?" I nodded. "Yes, you're not even going to try to work this out?" she asked, disbelief creeping into her voice now. I almost laughed again. Almost. But instead, I just looked at her. "You already worked it out," I said, "just not with me. That was it." That was the moment it fully landed because whatever control she thought she had left
Whatever narrative she thought she could still shape, it slipped right out of her hands, and she knew it. I turned slightly, ready to leave, and for the first time since I got there, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything anymore. It was done completely. The drive home felt quiet. Not the kind of quiet where your thoughts are racing so loud they drown everything else out. No, this was different. It was the kind of quiet that comes after something ends completely. No questions left, no what-ifs, no second guessing, just silence. I kept both hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road, but I barely registered anything around me. Streetlights passed in slow intervals, casting brief flashes across the windshield. Familiar roads, familiar turns, but none of it felt the same because I wasn't the same person driving them anymore. About halfway home, my phone buzzed. I didn't need to check it. I already knew. Still, at the next red light, I picked it up. Laura calling. I stared at the name for a second, then declined it. The phone buzzed again almost immediately. Another call, declined, then a message. We need to talk. I let out a slow breath and locked the screen, tossing the phone onto the passenger seat. No, we didn't. Whatever needed to be said had already been said, or more accurately, shown. And I wasn't going back to that conversation. Not tonight. Not ever.
By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same as it always had. Same porch light, same windows, same quiet neighborhood. But the second I stepped out of the truck and walked up to the door, I knew something had changed. Not the house. Me. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, and for the first time since we bought the place, it didn't feel like ours. It felt like a space I had been sharing. That's it, nothing more. I closed the door behind me slowly, the click echoing louder than usual in the empty hallway. For a few seconds, I just stood there listening. No TV, no background noise, no movement, just stillness. Then my eyes drifted to the wall on the right. Photos, us, vacations, birthdays, random moments frozen in time, smiling, laughing, arms around each other like nothing in the world could break it. I walked closer, studied one of them. It was from a trip we took a few years back. Beach in the background, sun setting, her leaning into me, smiling like she meant it. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to figure out something simple. When did that version of her disappear? Or maybe the better question, was she ever really that person? I reached up, took the frame off the wall, and held it in my hands. It felt lighter than I expected, or maybe I was just heavier before. For a second, I considered putting it back, holding on to it, keeping at least something. But then I remembered tonight, her face, her voice, the way she looked at me like I was the problem. And just like that, the hesitation disappeared. I set the frame down on the table and cracked it. Not violently, not out of anger, just deliberately. The glass split with a dull sound, clean, final. I set it aside and moved to the next one. And the next, one by one, not rushing, not hesitating, just going through them like I was closing a chapter that had already been written. By the time I was done, the wall was empty, bare, and for some reason, it felt right. I walked into the living room, looking around. Couch, table, bookshelf, all the same, but none of it felt shared anymore. I exhaled slowly and ran a hand through my hair. Then I started moving. Her things were everywhere once I actually looked. Small things, jacket on the chair, shoes near the door, a bag sitting by the hallway. Things I used to ignore, things that used to blend into our life. Now they stood out like they didn't belong. I grabbed a box from the closet and started packing. No emotion, no second thoughts, just action. Fold, place, move on. Clothes, shoes, random items from drawers. Everything went in neatly, carefully, like I was organizing, not reacting. At some point, my phone buzzed again. I ignored it, kept going. Another box, then another. Time passed, but I didn't track it. Didn't need to, because with every item I packed, something else lifted. Something I hadn't even realized I was carrying. By the time I finished, the living room looked different, cleaner, simpler. Mine. I stood there for a moment looking around, and for the first time that night, I felt it. Not anger, not pain, relief. Quiet, steady, relief. Like I had been holding my breath for months and didn't even know it. And now I could finally let it go. I walked back to the hallway and glanced at the empty wall again. No photos, no reminders, just space. I nodded to myself once, then turned off the lights and sat down on the couch. The house was silent again, but this time it didn't feel heavy. It felt calm, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. The next morning didn't feel heavy. That was the strange part. I woke up expecting that weight to come crashing back. The anger, the questions, the replay of everything that happened. But instead, there was just quiet, real quiet, the kind that doesn't press down on you.
I was halfway through making coffee when there was a knock on the door. I opened it and there she was, Megan, my neighbor. She stood there for a second, looking at me a little too closely, like she was reading something I hadn't said out loud. "You okay?" she asked. Simple question, no pressure behind it, no assumptions, just steady. I leaned against the door frame and let out a small breath. "Yeah," I said, "I think so." She nodded like that was enough for now. "I saw your truck late last night," she added. "Figured something was off." Of course she did. Megan always noticed things most people didn't. "You don't have to talk about it," she said. "Just didn't want you sitting alone if you didn't want to." That hit different because she wasn't trying to fix anything, wasn't asking for details, wasn't digging. She was just there. So I stepped aside. "You want coffee?" She smiled slightly. "Yeah, I can do coffee." We didn't talk about Laura, not that morning. We just sat there at the kitchen table drinking coffee in silence. That didn't feel awkward. And for the first time in a while, I didn't feel like I had to explain myself to anyone. Over the next few days, that became a pattern. She'd stop by, sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we wouldn't. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. And somewhere in that quiet routine, I started to feel steady again. Not fixed, not healed, but grounded. Like I wasn't drifting anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. It took a few weeks before Laura came back. Not like before, not confident, not controlled. This time she looked different, tired, like something didn't work out the way she thought it would. I opened the door and she stood there for a second, almost unsure if she should even be there. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was uncertain. I didn't invite her in right away. I just looked at her. And in that moment, I realized something simple. I didn't miss her. "I made a mistake," she said quickly, like she rehearsed it. I got caught up and things didn't go how I thought they would." I nodded once, calm. "Yeah," I said, "I figured." Her eyes searched mine like she was trying to find something familiar. "Derek's gone," she added. "He just disappeared." I thought, I don't need the details, I cut in. That stopped her because again, she expected emotion, a reaction, something she could work with. "I want to fix this," she said. "We can fix this." I shook my head. "No," I said, "just that simple, final." Her face changed, not sadness first, frustration, because she was losing control of the situation. "You're really going to throw everything away?" she asked. I held her gaze. "You already did," I replied. That silence hit harder than anything else. Then came the shift, the one I was expecting. "If you don't work with me on this," she said, her tone tightening, "I can make things difficult for you." There it was. Not regret, not accountability, control again. But this time, I was ready. "You can try," I said calmly. "It won't go the way you think." Because this time, I wasn't the same person she left behind. And as she stood there realizing she wasn't getting anything back, I closed the door. Not angry, not rushed, just done. And for the first time, it actually felt like the